and we are talking about one of my favorite subjects today, and that is negotiation.
Go and be prepared, know what you want, know what you're willing to agree to, know what you need to fluctuate, what your room of fluctuation is, and know what your deal breakers are, what you just absolutely, it has to be this, or I can't go forward with this agreement or this party or whatever it could be. And put your best foot forward, and don't be afraid. Just do it. Practice with someone else, talk to a girlfriend or a guy. It depends who you're going to be negotiating with. If it's another woman, practice with a woman. If you're going to be negotiating, it's going to be against a man, practice with a man. I find I have male friends that when I tell them something that I'm sure they're going to agree with me on, they have a totally different point of view. So it's always interesting to run it by them first. And just don't be afraid to do it. Just do it. Start with something simple. Go in and bargain. Go to the swap meet or go somewhere and try and bargain for that sweater that you want with the knowing that, hey, they'll either take my price or I'm walking.
Yeah. Also, as business owners, we're negotiating contracts, agreements with vendors, with employees, with contractors, almost on a daily basis. And asking for more is this, we have this blockage around it. And my theory sometimes is that, number one, we aren't raised that way, right? For a lot of us, right? It may even depend on the types of games and sports we played as a kid, learning that negotiation skill. But sadly, the bigger picture is I don't know that as women, we are as confident as we should be in, hey, I deserve this. I'm going to ask for more. And that's where I think other cultures are really good, right, at negotiating. I know for myself, I grew up here in the United States, but when I traveled to Latin America, I traveled to parts of the Middle East, Asia, negotiation for, buying an orange is part of the process, right? Which is a phenomenal skill and one that I'm kind of uncomfortable with, right?
And to say what you just said, in the summer I was in the Middle East, I was in Israel, and we were going through the marketplace, and I said to my daughter, if you want to practice negotiation skills, this is a good place to do it, because no matter what you're buying, you are going to bargain. And if you don't bargain, they're going to look at you like you're an idiot. Like that crazy American just paid me full price and you were supposed to bargain and you're supposed to know that. So it's a skill and it's something that you can practice and get better at.
Exactly. So Andrea, I know you have a few best practices for women in negotiation. What is the first thing we need to think about when we're ready to step into a negotiation?
Well, really first, in this perfect world, yes, I want this, this, and this, but where will I settle? And you don't want to go into the negotiation just blind and not knowing. So you want to do your homework. You maybe want to practice on someone else, depending on how important this negotiation is to you. The more important, the more research, the more background, the more preparation you're going to do. Like anything else, you're going to be prepared.
Yep. And with that, Andrea, one thing that you touched on that I think is really, really important is as women, a lot of times, about 90%, statistically, 90% of women-owned businesses are solopreneurs. So oftentimes a negotiation in business is really around ourselves as the product, right? As an attorney, you're offering your service, you are the product, right? If you're a marketing professional, you get the idea, you are the product. And so I think a lot of times when it comes to negotiating with a client for a contract, for example, back to your point about taking it personally, if somebody says no to you or they try to haggle and, bring down your prices, you take it personally because you are the product versus, if you have I'm selling pens, you don't take it as personally because it's not about you. Any suggestions about that, kind of guard, so to speak, of like, here's where I end and you begin?
Well, I think you have to know your value. So you have to know what you're bringing to the table, what your competition brings to the table, and how you can differentiate yourself from them, and what you command for your services.
One thing that I find to be helpful is pretending like you're negotiating for somebody else, frankly, right? I mean, really just put yourself in the mindset of, I'm not talking, about me. I'm talking about somebody else, and just take yourself out of the equation.
I totally agree with you. And in my own personal life, when I've had to make some very important decisions, the way I did it was trying to be very objective. How would I advise my friend Mary, if she came to me and she had this situation, what would I advise her to do? Now that was something very near and dear to my heart, and it was very emotionally difficult. And so being objective definitely helped. And the same thing, that's one of the things I try to work with my clients. I can be objective. They can't necessarily, especially like in divorce situations when there's child custody and visitation. It could be very emotionally charged. But for me, I'm not involved in the relationship like they are. So I could look at the situation, hear what it is that they want, and do my best to get it for them. And then what are the things we can agree on first? So what does it look like are the easiest things that they could both agree on?
Now, is that to start getting to the yes sort of mentality?
Right.
Okay.
So we want to find as many things that are yeses that we can agree on to kind of set the tone of, hey, there is some agreement. And she's not totally, hard-headed, and she's here to help. And, and it depends. Every situation's different. But I think when you're trying to negotiate for yourself, that's a good place to start, is what are the things we know that we can agree on? Maybe there's simple things, and start from there and get yeses and get those. And especially depending if it's a business type situation, you always want to get it in writing.
Yes.
So be writing all the things that you agree to.
So you can kind of go back and say, well, I see here that we've agreed on this, this, and this.
Right.
Let's just get through this little thing at the end here.
Right. And then the tone of it maybe is like both sides are realizing the other person's more reasonable than they expected. That maybe that harder thing, the thing that was kind of the white elephant in the room that no one really wanted to talk about, that you finally get to that point, and it's a much easier negotiation because you both realize, wow, we were able to agree on these other things. Maybe we can agree on this. And it may not turn out exactly like you wanted. And that's the way a lot of these cases go, like especially child visitation, custody. People have a better chance if they can negotiate it themselves or through me or an attorney than if they can't agree. They will go in front of a judge who doesn't really know them at all, will see them for 15 minutes and make some life-changing decisions for them.
Yeah.
So the more decisions in that particular instance you could make and agreements you could come to between you, knowing your family dynamics, the better you're going to be.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so knowing what your points are, knowing what the other person wants. Let's talk about something specific to business, Andrea. So we took on a pretty complicated software platform about a year ago to do a lot of our training and communication internally. And so we negotiated with the software vendor because the price they initially presented to us was not what we wanted to pay, right? So my question is, you're back, you're forth, okay, here's what I want, can we cut this, can we do this? When do you know to walk away from a negotiation?
Well, I think if you have set in your mind what you're willing to pay, you've done your homework, that's a fair price, maybe you need them, but you don't need them badly enough that you're willing to pay their price, and you have somewhere else you can go and get same or similar, and you'd be happy, just as happy with the other for a lesser price.
Yeah.
And you've then brought to whoever person A is, company A, said, hey, this is what I can get over here. I prefer to do business with you. Will you match it? And they say no, and you're not happy. You can't reach something agreed upon. Then you walk.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've ever had the somewhat unpleasant experience of buying a new car.
Oh, yes.
Yes. So that is prime example of negotiations. And I have to say, so I don't buy new cars very often. And the last one I did was like 6 or 7 years ago. For one, I believe in writing out the car to the end. Yeah. And two, just the thought of walking into a car dealership, and especially I think when you walk in as a woman, they see us as prey, like, oh, here she comes. But if you walk in knowing and you've done your homework, like I did the last time I bought a vehicle, I had really searched my numbers and was prepared to haggle and was prepared to walk away. And that's part of the negotiation and something like that.
Yeah.
You have to be prepared to walk. And if you're not prepared to walk, you're probably going to lose in the negotiation. Yeah. So, I did walk, and then they came back to me with the price that I was willing to pay.
Did they literally chase you down?
Yes. as I was heading out the door, after I met with the second and third, person in the
so
place.
Frustrating.
They tried to switch vehicles on me and, everything else. So,
but it's so funny because, so my reaction to that is so frustrating,
Yes.
but would a man's reaction to that be like, that's fun, right? I mean,
Some
just
men,
like inherently, I don't even want to even have to deal with that, right?
I agree with you. And I think that's part of men and women communicate differently.
Yeah.
And we just do. And, and that's just society and how it is. And some women, I think, do love to negotiate.
Yeah.
And they're not intimidated by it. So we're trying to not be sexist about that.
It's a gross generalization.
Right, very
yes.
general speaking.
Yeah.
I think more women would be intimidated by the car dealership than men.
Yes.
Or,
Yes.
depending on the situation.
Yeah.
So it's just something that women have to do. You got to
Yeah.
practice. Got to
Yeah.
practice.
Exactly. So what I've been told is never ever accept the first offer, right? Even if you get the offer, say it's a job interview, right? And they come back and they're like $100,000, and you're like inside, you're just like, oh my God, that's the most, yes, right?
Right.
So what I've been told is never say yes immediately. Kind of take a step back. Let me think about that. Let me get back to you. Kind of maybe go back and forth a little bit. What are your thoughts? Is that good advice?
I think it really depends on the situation. I just had a male friend who was offered a really great job, and he knew going in what his value was and how much he wanted. And they offered him even more than that to start.
Yeah.
So he was happy with the first offer, but yet he backed up and he didn't take it right on the spot, but he waited a few days, and I'll get back to you by whatever day, Wednesday, and sure enough did. And he didn't negotiate. He did not ask for more.
But he did
step away.
Yes, I'll take it.
Right. You don't want to seem too anxious, just like, say in the dating world of, whatever. I mean, we all know how that could be. But, so it's business is business.
Yeah.
You don't want to them to feel that they got too good of a deal, or that they took
that's
advantage
the mentality,
of you.
right? If you jump on it and say yes, they're like, oh shoot, I could have given them a lower price point, right?
Like she's so excited, she's a little desperate, she's going to take that offer as opposed to you coming back, and there might be some minor points that you negotiate for. So maybe you're okay on the money, but maybe you're working downtown and you need parking included, or your health benefits, or whatever they might be, some extra perk that you're okay if you don't get, but you may want to ask for just so they don't think that they could have gotten a better deal from you.
Yep, absolutely. Awesome. Well, great advice, Andrea. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you, Felena.